Hook opening scene. Imagine this: you stumble across a deal so unbelievable that people laugh at you when you tell them. A run-down mountain cabin listed at 25 cents? Yes, a single shiny quarter. You grab it, fix it up, and 1 year later, it's worth $10 million. You should be celebrating, right? Except, out of nowhere, the HOA steps in and says, "Actually, that cabin isn't yours anymore. It belongs to us." What would you do? Fight for what's yours, or give up everything you built? This is the story of how one decision, one quarter, and one cabin changed my life forever. I never thought life could pivot on something as small as a coin. Back then, I was broke, barely scraping by. My job at the gas station covered bills, but not dreams. Every night I came home exhausted, with nothing left in me except a quiet whisper. There has to be more than this. That whisper grew louder when I saw the ad. It wasn't in the newspaper. It wasn't online. It was taped, crooked and faded, to the bulletin board outside the old diner. It read "Cabin for sale, 25th off. Must be local. Must care." People laughed at it, shaking their heads, calling it a prank. But my heart pounded. Something about it felt meant for me. I tore off the slip of paper, hands trembling, and called the number. The man on the other end was elderly, his voice wary yet kind. His name was Henry. He explained that the cabin had belonged to his late brother, and he didn't want to see it rot away. He didn't care about money. He cared about someone giving it life again. When I dropped that quarter into his wrinkled palm, it felt like buying hope itself. The cabin, however, was worse than I imagined. The roof sagged, windows shattered, mold crawling up the walls. It smelled of rot and abandonment. My friends mocked me. My mother cried, telling me I wasted the little I had. But when I stood in front of that cabin, I didn't see decay. I saw possibility. Nights after work, I drove up the mountain. I hammered, patched, painted, and sanded. Some nights I cried on the dusty floor, my hands blistered, my body shaking. But every nail I drove in was a promise to myself: I will not quit. 1 year later, the cabin stood transformed, not just repaired, but reborn. A developer stumbled upon it, stunned by its location overlooking the valley, surrounded by untouched forest. Word spread fast, offers poured in. By the time an appraisal came through, the cabin was valued at over $10 million. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had won. But then came the letter. Thick envelope, stamped with authority. My heart dropped as I read the words. The Homeowners Association claims ownership of your property due to covenant agreements. Effective immediately, all rights revert to the HOA. I thought it was a mistake. A cruel joke. But the war had just begun. At first, I laughed it off. There's no way they can take this? I told myself, but lawyers confirmed otherwise. The cabin sat inside the boundary of a long-forgotten HOA, one that had been inactive for decades, until they discovered the land's new value. Suddenly, I wasn't fighting over a cabin. I was fighting against greed, bureaucracy, and powerful neighbors who didn't want me to win. Meetings turned into battles. The HOA board, polished and smug, sat across from me as if I was a trespasser on my own land. They called me unfit to manage property of such value. They insisted the deed was flawed. They painted me as a squatter who stumbled into fortune I didn't deserve. Every word was a dagger. For months, I felt the world closing in, suffocating me. Friends who once mocked me now said, "Told you, it was too good to be true." Even family urged me to walk away. "It's not worth the fight," they said. But I remembered every blister on my hands, every tear I shed on those floors, every night I worked under the moonlight believing in something no one else could see. That cabin wasn't just wood and nails. It was my blood, my spirit, my miracle. So I fought. Court hearings drained me. Legal fees stacked higher than I could imagine. At one point, I considered selling everything just to stop the pain. But in my darkest moment, I drove up to the cabin. I sat on the porch, watching the sunrise spill gold over the valley. My chest tightened, and I whispered, "This is mine. This is my fight." Then, something incredible happened. The story caught the attention of the media. A young man who bought a cabin for a quarter, now facing an HOA trying to strip him of his dream. It spread like wildfire. Strangers reached out, offering support, crowdfunding my legal battle. For the first time, I wasn't standing alone. Months later, in a courtroom packed with reporters, the judge delivered his verdict. The HOA's claims were dismissed. My ownership was upheld. The cabin, the land, the dream, it was all mine. When the gavel struck, I felt a wave of tears burn down my face. Not just because I won, but because I realized something deeper. The quarter I dropped into Henry's palm wasn't the price of a cabin. It was the price of a chance. Closing message. Final hook. Today, the cabin is worth more than I could ever imagine. But its true value isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the lesson it taught me, that sometimes life gives you a chance so small, so fragile, others will laugh at it. But if you believe, if you fight, if you pour your soul into it, one day, that chance can turn into everything. So, if life ever hands you your quarter, don't toss it aside. Hold on, because it just might change your life.